Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel. I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content, and for today I prepared a review of three pretty unknown cheapies that comes from the brands of Zimaya and Wataniah. The ones from Zimaya are called Mazaaj Infused and Grandeur, and the one from Wataniah is called Hayat. All three of them are actually quite nice cheapies, very affordable, but let me tell you more about them today. Firstly, I'll talk about the two cheapies that come from the brand of Zimaya, and I'll start with the one that feels the most feminine out of the bunch that I'm featuring in today's video, and that's Grandeur. So let's go up and close, let's quickly check the packaging and the presentation and the bottle design of Zimaya's Grandeur, and then I'll come back here to talk about the scent itself. The box is this dual colored box, golden and the black colors. On the front you got the name of the fragrance, the concentration EDP, the bottle size 100 milliliters, some branding on the bottom of the on the back, of the box itself. There's a production date which is February of 2024, and in order to get to the bottle you need to slide this top part like this. And then this is the actual bottle design. It actually looks really lovely, this golden color, which is a fingerprint magnet. Unfortunately the cap is metallic, and again on the front you got some of the details about the fragrance itself. All around the bottle actually looks really nice, and the whole packaging is nice considering how cheap of a fragrance this is. Now, like usual, all three fragrances that I'm reviewing in today's video are supposedly very heavily inspired by a famous designer and niche scents. Now in the case of a Grandeur, this one is supposedly inspired by Magic from Al Jazeera Perfumes. Now, I've never tried the original fragrance, so I cannot confirm that, but I can tell you that this in a way smells similar to Roses Vanille from Mancera. But enough about that. First, let me show you the sprayer in action, and then I'll talk about the scent itself. The sprayer is actually pretty decent. And now onto the scent of Zimaya's Grandeur. Now this is a fragrance that very heavily relies on the note of rose note. Immediately after spraying this fragrance, you'll be hit in the face by a pretty strong rose note that doesn't feel overwhelming. It's strong but not too strong. It's not too sweet. It's kind of fresh, slightly has slightly fresh properties to it. It's not overly sweet or overly rosy, let's call it that. There's also quite a bit of vanillic sweetness in the opening of this fragrance, but this also feels kind of airy, kind of ozonic in an interesting way, and even a hint salty somewhere in the background. It's a nice, fresh, slightly sweet type of a rose opening. The more this goes into its dry down, the sweeter it actually becomes. The rose loses a bit of its freshness and becomes a little bit more sweet, and on the dry down, the most prominent notes are the rose, the vanilla, and you also get quite a bit of ambery sweetness. It's a nicely done rose-based fragrance that actually feels quite nice in the air, but smells pretty feminine, and that's why I'm starting up with this fragrance. Now, just wanted to mention something out. When I first tried this one, I wasn't very impressed because all I could smell the first time I tried it was the rose. There wasn't just enough sweetness from the vanilla and the amber, but about 3 months or so of maceration has actually helped developing the scent itself, and nowadays this feels way more balanced and way sweeter compared to when I first got it, and now it smells really nice. When it comes to how close this fragrance is to the original that it's supposedly being inspired, again, I'm not sure because I've not tried, but again, this one feels somewhat similar to Roses Vanille from Mancera. You still get that pretty much the same combo like with the Mancera fragrance. Performance-wise, good performer, about 7.5 to 8 hours of performance with quite a good initial projection for about an hour and a half, maybe even up to the 2-hour mark if you overspray a little bit. Price-wise, very inexpensive. I paid something like 15-16 euros, which just makes it pretty much a bargain, especially if you like rose-based fragrances, if you like vanilla-based fragrances. And versatility-wise, a pretty versatile feminine scent that can be worn pretty much all year round, maybe apart from the hottest months of the year. The second Zimaya fragrance that I'm featuring in today's video, which is called the Zimaya Mazaaj Infused, is actually quite a masculine fragrance. So again, let's go up and close, let's quickly check out the bottle design and the presentation of Mazaaj Infused, and then I'll come back here to talk about the scent itself. This is the presentation of a Zimaya Mazaaj Infused. In fact, the box itself and the bottle itself is pretty much identical to the original Zimaya Mazaaj. It simply comes in different colors. Here on the front you got the name of the fragrance, the name of the company, the bottle size 100 milliliters and the concentration EDP. This bottle has an interesting way of opening. As you can see, it actually is quite nice. The bottle design, pretty squarish one, again exactly the same as the OG Mazaaj, just in blue colors, light blue colors. As you saw, another pretty decent packaging from a Zimaya fragrance. Let me show you the spray in action, but first let me tell you quickly about the scent itself. This, at least to my nose, is not a straight up clone of anything, but it feels somewhat similar to Louis Vuitton's Imagination, in a way done in a similar style. It's a fresh fragrance, the spray is decent. And now onto the scent itself. In order to enjoy Mazaaj, you need to like two things. First is a strong ginger note. You should not be afraid of carrying a fragrance that has a strong ginger note, and also you should like citrusy based fragrances, because this has both of those notes and accords that are quite strong, especially the ginger note. It opens up with a heavy blast of those citruses. There's an orange note, there's a bergamot note, there's that very strong ginger note. You also get quite a bit of neroli, which just adds a bit of freshness and a bit of cleanness to the whole scent. But to my nose, this is all about the mix of the citruses and the ginger note. When this goes into the dry down, it becomes a little bit more woody. There's quite a bit of ambroxan that's being used in this fragrance for sure. It becomes a little bit musky, maybe introduced to a little bit of just a hint of amber sweetness as well. But again, on the dry down, the ginger still plays a very prominent role along with that heavy ambroxan dose that you get with this fragrance. All around, this is a very fresh, very light fragrance that should work great in the in the warmer months of the year, especially in the summer. It will give you that fresh, that clean feel, and it's done pretty nicely. It feels a bit synthetic, can be a bit sharp because of that strong ginger note in the opening, but other than that, actually, it's done, it has a pretty decent quality. When it comes to how close this is again to that, famous fragrance that I mentioned, Imagination from Louis Vuitton, it's not a straight up clone, but it's something that's done in a similar style. When it comes to performance, actually, I was quite surprised by the performance of Zimaya Mazaaj Infused. I've been getting about 7 hours of performance out of it, which is in my books really good when it comes to a fresh scent like this one. And this also tends to project quite nicely actually for the first about hour and a half, maybe even up to 2 hours. And in my personal opinion, that's down to the ambroxan and the strong ambroxan note and the strong ginger note with this fragrance. Price wise, around about the €20 mark, which makes it very affordable, very inexpensive, and versatility wise pretty versatile because it can be worn pretty much all year round, although this is more of a summertime scent, more of a daytime scent. And moving on to the last fragrance featured in today's video, which is called Hayat, and it comes from the brand of Wataniah. For me, this is sort of a perfectly unisex fragrance. That's why I kept it for last. Let's go quickly up and close. Let's check the packaging and the presentation of Hayat, and then I'll come back here to talk about the scent. This is the box of Wataniah Hayat. It comes in this dark reddish color with golden accents. Again, on the front you got the name of the fragrance, the name of the company, the concentration EDP, the bottle size 100 milliliters. On the bottom there's a production date, which is March of 2024. And just a fun fact for me, that Hayat logo actually looks a little bit like a Ferrari logo. And then this is the actual bottle design of Wataniah Hayat. It's again in this darkish red color. It has a nice swirl to it, looks kind of feminine, golden accents. The cap is plastic, but it's a snug fit. On the front you got the Wataniah logo along with the Hayat logo. As you saw, the bottle design is quite feminine in my opinion, but I think that doesn't do justice to the fragrance itself, because for me the scent is perfectly unisex. Now this fragrance is very heavily inspired by Latafa Hamra, up to a point where it smells almost identical to my nose. Now, when I first got this fragrance, this was presented to me as being an Angel Share clone, and I tried it for the first time, and I was quite surprised because the first thing that popped up in my mind as soon as I smelled it was actually Latafa Hamra. I'll show you the sprayer in action because it's a decent sprayer. And the scent itself again smells very, very similar to Latafa Hamra. You get a lot of that spiciness, that cinnamon, dates, praline, vanilla, tonka bean, ambery mix that you get with the original fragrance. This one smells very, very similar. to that. Opens up spicy, sweet, and then dries down to that very sweet mix of all the sweet notes like the dates, like the vanilla, the ambery sweetness, a hint of powderness from a tonka bean, some benzoin. Almost feels so sweet that feels to a point that it's feeling a little bit boozy as well, and smells actually really nicely, and very similar to Latafa Hamra. And I was actually surprised by the quality of Hayat, because this is a pretty cheap fragrance, but more about that in a second. When it comes to how close this fragrance is to Latafa Hamra, I would say almost identical, with just a few minor differences. To me, this in the opening feels like a slight hint fresher compared to Latafa Hamra, not by much, really just a hint fresher, and on the dry down just feels a hint less sweet compared to Hamra, but no more than that. I'm talking about very minute differences. So it smells almost identically to Latafa Hamra. Performance wise, another area where I was pretty much surprised, because Latafa Hamra is pretty beastly on my skin, and Hayat actually turned out to be very similar performance wise. Maybe slightly less lasting compared to Hamra, but if Hamra lasts, let's say, 10 hours on my skin, this will last for 9 hours, which is still a great performing scent. Also projects really nicely for 2, maybe even over the 2-hour mark. Price wise, very inexpensive. I paid something like 18 euros to get it, which is about half the price of Latafa Hamra, and it's a good thing. And versatility wise, a perfectly unisex fragrance that's very sweet, that's great for the cold weather season, and also great as a date night scent. And at the end, a few final words about the 3 fragrances that I reviewed today, 2 from Zimaya and 1 from Wataniah. When it comes to Grandeur from Zimaya, this is a nice rose vanillic based fragrance that's actually pretty feminine, feels a bit light in the air, a bit ozonic and salty, but it's done quite nicely, very inexpensive, and actually has very decent performance. And I also like the packaging and the bottle design. The quality all around is very good, considering how cheap of a fragrance this is. So if you are a fan of this combination of rose and vanilla with some more added ambery sweetness, then definitely check out Zimaya Grandeur. I've been quite enjoying this one, but this is one of those scents that really needed to sit for a few months and macerate in order to reach its full potential. When it comes to Zimaya Mazaaj Infused, this is a masculine fragrance that heavily relies on a strong ginger note, on a strong citrusy note, and on a strong neroli note. So if you like those few notes, this can really work great in the summertime, in the hottest months of the year. Has decent quality, feels a bit synthetic, but that's to be expected at this price point. And all around, this is a good choice for a very inexpensive summertime scent, daytime scent. And then when it comes to the Wataniah one, Hayat, this actually turned out to be a surprisingly close clone to Latafa Hamra. Close scent-wise, close performance-wise, but for half the price. And that's really something good in my mind. If you don't already own Latafa Hamra and you want to try some of that very sweet DNA, then definitely check out Hayat from Wataniah, because this costs half the price of Hamra, at least around here, and all around I've been quite impressed with Hayat. And so guys, in today's video I reviewed 2 fragrances from the brand of Zimaya called Grandeur and Mazaaj Infused, and 1 from Wataniah called Hayat. I hope that you found this video interesting or useful. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.